simple Home Depot 5/16 I stainless steel weld nut that you can get in the hardware store, a washer, a very inexpensive like $3 bearing that you can get either in the hardware store or on the internet, another washer, an axial bearing, which is a little pin bearing. It's another type of bearing that doesn't cost very much, just a couple of dollars. This is an electrical fixture. You can just get this in any box hardware store. This runs about $5 as well. This is also another component that you can get at the hardware store in one of those boxes, a True Value hardware store. It's just a 5/8, almost like a valve seat, but it's just a hardware piece, nothing too fancy. This is the cap that goes on the end of this, that when you buy it, you buy one and it has a thread for each end. And a little shackle for the top and a thin nut to lock that on. A couple of things you need to do when we build this. One is, because this is the weld nut, I needed to bring down the outer surface a little bit on the weld nut. I used a lathe. You could also just probably chuck it up with a drill press and run it with some sandpaper or a file. Wasn't much, maybe a thou to come down, a thou or two. Then you take this washer and you open it up a little bit, and what that does is it allows you to keep the chamfer here in the weld nut, so that you have a bearing surface and you're not pulling the weld nut through. Once you do that, you can just put your bearing and assemble the bearing on top like that, and then once that's done, we'll assemble a washer on top of that and the axial bearing. So, make yourself a little pancake. Now for the eyelet, what we did and what we had to do was we had to, since we didn't have room in here, we had to actually make a slot in this, which is fairly simple to do. A vise and a drill press, or a vise and a drill. See? Got the hole drilled. Okay. So there's the little slot. And what we're going to do is, once we get it all assembled, but it creates a nice little space so that you can then fill this in with a pin or with a little bit of solder, something that's going to fill this void and keep it from unwinding out of the screw of the weld nut. So as for this little electric piece, what I did was I just filled this with a little plastic, actually it's epoxy, on one side, and had a washer that I epoxied to in there. There's also a chamfer that holds that washer up, so it's not just epoxy. There is a split diameter in here, and there is a little ridge for that. So that worked out perfectly for that. What we do next is we took this assembly and we flip it over. So the bearing surface in here has got the thrust washer, and then we have the weld nut. And then we bring this through and we get it through all the bearings and we screw this in. Okay, so now once that's all assembled and it's greased very well and we have it through everything here, we bring it right up just so it's flush to the surface, which is good. And we're going to put this down and leave this for a minute. Now we're going to take this piece And we're going to fill that right through to there. And then we'll lock this in here with this plate. There. Bring that down. So that's on there. In a way that fits well. As you can see, I greased up everything here pretty well. I'll bring this all the way down as far as I can get it with that, which is pretty much there. And then we put the little locking screw on the top so it doesn't come off. It's very important to have the locking screw since this is going to be a powered device to spin the sail. So you don't want the device unspinning the other. So now once you have that assembled, the solder in there all packed down in. It's nice and solid. It's not going to unwind on us. We have the bearings working. Plenty of grease in there now. What we're going to do is we're going to put the top on here. And we're going to tighten it a bit so we can get this other lock washer on top tightened as well. The lock nut on top. We're going to see if we can put that right on top. Just spin it down. There. Okay, we have that. Okay, so there it is. We back this off a little bit. There we go. And we have this swivel. Right like that. Now our last step is to clean this off and then to cover this with either shrink wrap or electric tape. Make it look good. So here you have the final product. Nuts tightened. You got that all around. It's locked in. Spins freely. This is not for your blue water sailors. We need the dependability. This is for your lake and your day sailors to give it a shot if you're bored or want to try to make a less expensive alternative to the $100 swivel you can buy in the catalog. I'm going to try it this year. I think it's going to work pretty good. If it doesn't, we'll probably go out and buy one of the expensive ones. But I thought it was a good little project. It was actually one that took several iterations because, quite honestly, it started out much more complicated than it was. But at the end, came up with a pretty simple mechanism to be able to do it, to have a bearing swivel, nice and greased, and to have it in a decent size. So we'll give it a shot this year, see how we do, and see how it holds up. All right, thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you're interested in these little goofball projects we do.